You sit before me not by chance. I do not speak these words as mere intellect, but as invocation. I summon you into the mirror of the soul. For the empath, that strange and luminous creature, is not born simply to feel. No, something ancient chose you to carry the unbearable. You were not asked. You were shaped by forces that knew you before you knew yourself, and now you must know why. Let us begin with a confession of truth so disturbing that even the most self-aware among you may tremble to hear it. Your light is being fed upon in secret. This is not metaphor. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is psychic reality, as real as the blood that moves through your veins. You, the empath, have been trained by pain to shine in dark rooms. But in that brightness, there is an invitation, often unconscious, always dangerous, extended to those who are starving. Starving for what they cannot generate on their own. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. Not every darkness seeks to destroy you, but some, cunning in their hunger, come not to kill the light, but to feed on it. Endlessly, parasitically, invisibly. They circle you like moths to flame, drawn by an instinct older than language itself. This is what I call psychic vampirism, the secret consumption of the soul's vitality. You feel it, don't you? That sense of being drained after conversations that felt harmless. That strange exhaustion after giving to someone who never really asked, but always expected. That creeping feeling that you are never alone in your own body, that your emotions might not even belong to you. The heaviness that settles in your chest when you walk away from certain people, as if they've taken something you cannot name, but desperately need back. These are not exaggerations of sensitivity. These are not overreactions. These are not signs that you are too much or too sensitive, as the world has told you. These are the whispers of your unconscious trying to tell you something is feeding. Something is taking what you have not consciously offered. Now, let us descend into the symbolic, for in dreams, this truth is often shown more clearly than in waking life. The unconscious speaks in images because it knows that reason alone cannot penetrate the defenses we've built around our own wounding. I once treated a woman, an empath, who dreamt that she was a golden bird trapped in a glass dome. Around her circled crows, patient and watching, waiting with the stillness of ancient hunters. Every time she sang, the dome cracked slightly, and a crow would drink from the light leaking through the cracks. She awoke weeping, unable to explain why her chest felt hollow, why she could not catch her breath. Do you see it? The empath, in her gift of expression, allows leakage of psychic light. The crow's unconscious archetypes of shadow are not evil, but they are hungry. They represent the unlived lives, the unintegrated selves, the parts of others that have learned to survive by consuming rather than creating. And her song, her giving, her shining, creates fractures through which the light escapes. The dome is her psychic boundary, or rather, her fragile attempt at one. She built it from glass because she wanted to be seen, to be visible, to prove her transparency and goodness. But glass, no matter how beautiful, is brittle. It was never meant to protect. It was meant to display. Empaths often mistake openness for love. But love without form is not divine. It is dissolution. It is the ocean swallowing the river until the river forgets it was ever its own current. When you say yes to everything, when you hold everyone's grief, when you merge without discernment, you become food. You become the host that the parasite cannot survive without. And I must tell you, even more dangerously, this feeding is often welcomed by your shadow. Yes, the part of you that believes you must be useful to be lovable, she is complicit. The part of you that grew up in chaos and found meaning in calming others, he is complicit. The part that was once neglected, rejected, ignored, abandoned in the dark of childhood, who discovered that feeling. Others gave her a role, a name, an identity, a reason to exist. She will hand you over to these feeders again and again just to not feel worthless. This is how the cycle is perpetuated. Not through force, but through unconscious agreement. An agreement signed in blood. You cannot remember spilling in a contract. You never recall reading. But the signature is yours nonetheless. Now let us go deeper still into the heart of what makes you both blessed and cursed. What is this light I speak of? It is not simply kindness, nor sweetness, nor goodwill. It is far older than that. It is what I called the numinous, the radiant pulse of the self that longs to be made manifest in the world. It is the divine spark that refuses to be extinguished, the God seed planted in human soil. When the empath shines authentically, not performatively, what is shining is not just personality. It is the soul's radiant instinct to heal, to unify, to reveal meaning in the midst of chaos. You are the ones who can walk into a room and feel the temperature of every heart. You are the ones who know what is not being said. You are the ones who carry the collective pain as if it were your own skin. But herein lies the danger to those without access to their own light. Yours is intoxicating. It is irresistible. It is salvation itself walking in human form. To the unintegrated, your presence feels like salvation. To the narcissist, the abuser, the manipulator, your light is a source, not a person. A source. Something to tap into, to draw from, to control. They do not see you. They see what you can do for them. They see the warmth without understanding that it comes from a living flame that can burn out, and they will not come with thanks. They come with stories of helplessness, with charm that feels like recognition, with neediness disguised as affection, with chaos disguised as crisis. They will tell you, I can't do this without you. And you will believe them because your archetypal wound is abandonment by the sacred. Because once upon a time, you needed someone desperately and they did not come. And now you have become the one who always comes, who never fails, who never abandons, even when it means abandoning yourself. Let us speak plainly now. Let us look at the roots of this pattern, for nothing in the psyche exists without origin. You were likely the child who felt everything too deeply, who sensed what was unspoken in the heavy silences of the dinner table, who played therapist to your own parents, reading their moods like tea leaves, predicting their storms, who learned to anticipate emotional weather like a sailor watches waves, always ready to adjust the sails, to avoid the storm, to keep the peace, to make everything manageable for everyone else. That child did not become an empath by choice. That child was forced to awaken early, thrust into consciousness before consciousness was ready. While other children played, you studied faces. While other children asked for needs to be met, you learned to make yourself small enough not to be a burden. And now, as an adult, you are that same child in a bigger body, still scanning, still overfunctioning, still believing that if you are attuned enough, you can prevent rejection, that if you give enough, you will be kept, that if you suffer quietly, perform perfectly, love unconditionally, you will finally be seen, finally be chosen, finally be enough. But this is the oldest betrayal, the cruelest lie you ever learned to tell yourself. Because the more you give from emptiness, the more you are drained. And the more you are drained, the more you confuse depletion with purpose. You begin to believe that exhaustion is proof of love, that suffering is the price of goodness, that to be worthy, you must disappear. You must understand your gift is not your sacrifice. Your sensitivity is not martyrdom. Your intuition is not a leash for others to pull a rope by which they can drag you into their underworld while you smile and call it service. If you keep giving what no one truly receives, if you keep pouring yourself into vessels with holes in the bottom, if you keep lighting yourself on fire to keep others warm, you are not being noble. You are being consumed. You are committing a slow spiritual suicide and calling it love. And if this frightens you, good, it should. Fear is sometimes the only thing that wakes us from our most dangerous dreams. Because until you recognize that your light is not an endless fountain, you will keep attracting those who never learn to shine for themselves. You will keep dating the wounded who only want your empathy, but never your truth, who love your ability to hold space, but resent you for having needs of your own. You will keep befriending the broken who idolize you until they resent you, who praise you as their savior, and then crucify you for not saving them completely. You will keep mothering the immature who say you are magic until they drain you dry and blame you for their thirst, for running out, for failing to be infinite. And you will call this love, but it is possession. You are being possessed not by demons, no, but by ancient archetypes of unworthiness, saviorhood, and sacrificial identity that have colonized your psyche like parasites of meaning. They whisper that your value lies in your utility. They convince you that rest is selfishness. They make you believe that boundaries are betrayal. You see, the ego of the empath often believes she is above shadow because she feels so much. She thinks she knows more because she suffers more. She believes she loves deeper, sees clearer, understands better. She wears her pain like a badge of spiritual advancement. But this is illusion. This is the ego in disguise, wearing the costume of humility. The empath's shadow is the need to be needed, even at the cost of being whole. It is the addiction to being indispensable. It is the secret pleasure of being the only one who understands, the only one who can help, the only one standing between someone and their complete collapse. And so you allow yourself to be leeched, not because you are weak, but because your identity is intertwined with this very dynamic. It's not their fault alone. The feeders, the users, the takers, they only enter through the doors you leave open. They only take what you offer, even if the offering is unconscious, even if you do not realize you are handing over your life force, one interaction at a time. And I say this not to shame you, but to awaken you. Because you are not just the light, you are also the guardian of that light. And guardianship requires consciousness, discernment, and the courage to say not for you, not anymore. And now the time has come to choose. Will you continue leaking your soul in silent hopes of being loved? Or will you at last integrate your own darkness and learn to protect what is sacred within you? You may not realize it yet, but the greatest danger to the empath is not the narcissist, the manipulator, or the chaotic lover who treats your heart like a hotel they can check in and out of at will. The true danger is you. Or rather, the version of you that still believes suffering is synonymous with sanctity. That emotional hunger in others is your responsibility. That exhaustion is proof of your usefulness. That worth must be earned through endless giving. This is the shadow's most elegant deception. It whispers in the voice that sounds like virtue. You're only valuable when you're being drained. You're only good when you're suffering. You're only worthy when you're useful. I've seen this time and again. The dreamer who arrives on my couch weeping because no one truly sees her. But when asked what she needs, she has no language. Only a catalog of what others need. She can recite their wounds with perfect clarity, but cannot name her own. She is fluent in their despair and mute in her own pain. She knows their triggers, but not her own desires. This is not empathy. This is dissociation in disguise. It is the ultimate abandonment of self dressed up as spiritual service. Your light, if not protected, becomes currency for others to spend. And over time, you forget it was ever yours. You forget what it feels like to shine for yourself. You forget that your presence alone is enough, that you do not need to perform miracles to deserve existence. The unconscious makes no moral distinctions between saint and slave, between helper and hostage. It sees only energy patterns repetition. And when you repeat the same pattern, overgiving, overfeeling, overextending, and the unconscious assumes it must be the path to wholeness. It thinks this must be what she wants. She keeps choosing it. But what it doesn't see is that you are burning your soul to keep others warm. What it doesn't understand is that you are dying from the very thing you call love. Now let us consider the archetypal structure beneath this. At the heart of the empath is the archetype of the wounded healer. The myth of Chiron the centaur, who could heal all wounds except his own. His pain made him wise, but it also made him lonely. He served others brilliantly, but could not serve himself. And so many empaths carry this same pattern. You are brilliant at understanding the brokenness in others, but remain blind to the cracks in yourself. You can diagnose everyone's suffering, but cannot recognize your own. You can hold space for everyone's journey, but have forgotten how to walk your own path. Why? Because to face your own wound would mean turning the light inward and discovering the depth of your own unmet needs. Your own grief, your own rage at not being chosen, not being protected, not being heard. Your own fury at having to grow up too fast, at having to be the adult in childhood, at having to betray yourself to keep the peace. It is easier, is it not, to heal others than to sit with the child inside you who still believes love must be earned through performance? Who still thinks that if she is just good enough, perfect enough, selfless enough, someone will finally stay. But your healing cannot come through projection. You cannot save your father by loving another wounded man. You cannot redeem your mother by rescuing your friends. You cannot rewrite your childhood through acts of compassion for the emotionally unavailable. Healing begins when you stop abandoning yourself to earn belonging. When you realize that you have been searching for yourself in other people's approval, that you have been trying to feel whole by making others whole, that you have been attempting to fill your own void by filling everyone else's. But the void remains, and it will remain until you turn toward it with the same compassion you've given freely to everyone else. Empathy is sacred, yes, but sacred things must be guarded. This is the wisdom every ancient tradition understood, but modernity has forgotten. In ancient temples, only the high priest or priestess could approach the inner sanctum. Why? Not because the sacred was dangerous, but because the uninitiated were unworthy to touch what they did not understand. The sacred required preparation, purification, intention. It demanded respect. You, dear empath, have no gatekeepers. You allow anyone into your sanctum. Anyone who is sad. Anyone who smiles in that particular way. Anyone who flatters your ability to understand. You confuse openness with enlightenment, accessibility with spirituality. But true spiritual maturity is not boundaryless. It is discerning. It knows the difference between compassion and codependency, between service and servitude, between helping and enabling. Discernment is the lost virtue of the empath. The ability to feel and still say no, to witness pain and not absorb it, to hold space without dissolving in it, to love without losing yourself. This is what separates the healer from the hostage. The modern world celebrates the empath as if it is an identity badge, a trending archetype, a spiritual gift to advertise on social media. But I tell you, most self-proclaimed empaths are actually emotionally enmeshed. They have confused intuition with hypervigilance, compassion with codependency, and giving with self-erasure. You must be willing to face this possibility that your gift is entangled with your trauma, that your ability to read rooms may come not from the divine, but from childhood survival, that your sense of others' emotions may be the residual echo of a nervous system trained to scan for danger, to predict violence, to manage chaos, to keep yourself safe by making yourself useful. I do not say this to dismiss your gift, but to liberate it, to separate what is truly yours from what was forced upon you, to distinguish between the gift and the wound. When you separate your empathy from your wounding, your light becomes clear. It stops flickering in the winds of others' storms. It becomes a beacon, not a buffet. It illuminates rather than dissolves. Let us now turn to the language of dreams again, for the unconscious speaks most clearly when we are not defending against its truth. One patient dreamt she lived in a house with no doors, only windows. People came and went freely. Some stole her furniture. Some climbed through the kitchen and ate her food. One even entered her bedroom while she slept and whispered in her ear, "You don't deserve privacy. You don't deserve protection. You exist for us." She tried to speak, to scream, to protest, but no sound came, only weeping, only the silent tears of someone who has forgotten how to say no. When she awoke, she said to me, "I felt like a ghost in my own home." Do you see, this house is the psyche of the empath without boundaries. A place where everyone is welcomed, but no one is filtered. Where the soul is accessible but undefended. Where there are windows for others to see in, but no walls to keep anything sacred. And eventually, the self begins to fade. The voice disappears. The needs become invisible. You become a ghost in your own life, haunting the spaces where you once lived, fully watching your own existence from a distance, unable to fully inhabit your own body. To reclaim your light, you must become the architect of that house. You must build doors, locks, walls. You must decide who enters and who stays outside. You must create rooms that are yours alone, spaces no one else can access without explicit invitation. And above all, you must allow your own self to live there, fully, loudly, messily, not as a caretaker of everyone else's storms, but as a sovereign being with agency, with desires, with the right to take up space. There is a sacred paradox here. When you shield your light, it shines more brightly. When you refuse to be drained, you gain the strength to truly serve. When you no longer need to be needed, your gifts become sharper, cleaner, unburdened by martyrdom and resentment. Because light, when preserved, becomes revelation. When protected, it transforms from a candle that can be snuffed out into a fire that cannot be extinguished. And make no mistake, those who feed upon you will resist this change with everything they have. They will say you are cold, that you've changed, that you are selfish. They will call you cruel for finally loving yourself. They will accuse you of betrayal for no longer betraying yourself. They will mourn the version of you that was slowly dying and call it the real you. Let them. Their discomfort is not your burden. It is a sign that the power dynamic is shifting. It is evidence that you are no longer available for consumption. It is proof that you have finally chosen yourself. And this is the final warning I give you. If you do not change the pattern will consume you utterly. One day, the empath who never says no wakes up bitter, resentful, unrecognizable to herself. She becomes the very thing she once pitied, closed, cold-hardened. Not because she is evil, but because her light was never meant to be endlessly given, without renewal, without reciprocity, without rest. She becomes cynical because she gave her trust to those who betrayed it. She becomes numb because she felt too much for too long. She becomes isolated because she finally learned that not everyone deserves access to her sacred self. I do not want that future for you. I want you radiant. I want you wise. I want your light to be an offering, not a sacrifice. A choice, not a compulsion. A gift, not a theft. But first, you must gather the parts of yourself you've scattered in others. The laughter you gave away to make someone feel better. The peace you surrendered to avoid conflict. The dreams you buried to care for someone who never cared for you. The voice you silenced to keep someone comfortable. The truth you swallowed to maintain false harmony. Call them back, all of them, every scattered piece, every fragment of soul you left in someone else's story. You are not a sponge. You are not a mirror. You are not a remedy for anyone's emptiness. You are not a void filler or a darkness absorber or an emotional garbage disposal. You are a soul, a living, breathing, sovereign soul. And souls were never meant to be consumed. They were meant to burn with their own fire shine, with their own light, live with their own purpose. Now you are beginning to see, are you not, that the path of the empath is not only a sacred one, but also a treacherous one? For what is light truly, if not that which casts shadows? And what are you, if not both the illuminated and the lost? This is not an insult to your gift. It is a reckoning with its cost. It is an honest accounting of what you have paid to be so sensitive, so open, so available. You see, your empathy is not just a function of your nervous system. It is a spiritual mechanism, a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between the personal and the collective. You are tuned often against your will to the frequency of sorrow that most people ignore. You hear the songs of grief that others cannot hear. You feel the ripples of pain that others never notice. This is why people feel safe around you, why they confess too much, why they weep in your presence without understanding why strangers tell you their life stories in grocery store lines, why wounded souls find you in every room. Because you do not merely listen, you receive, you witness, you hold, and what you receive, you carry. Often for far too long, often at far too great a cost. But how long can one carry what was never meant to be yours? How long can you bear the weight of others' unintegrated shadows before your own spine begins to crack? The unconscious has its own laws, and one of the most powerful among them is reciprocity, balance, exchange. In nature, the tree gives oxygen and takes in carbon dioxide. The ocean receives the rivers and returns clouds to the sky. The earth absorbs the rain and gives forth flowers. Even the archetypes in their infinite wisdom require an exchange, a giving and a receiving, a flow that moves both ways. But the empath, when distorted, gives and gives without ever demanding return. She receives pain but does not release it. She absorbs toxicity but does not transmute it. She takes in darkness, but forgets to return to the light. This breaks the laws of psychic balance, and wherever there is imbalance, the psyche demands compensation. It will extract the price one way or another. That compensation is often illness. Yes, you heard me. The body becomes the voice for the boundaries you never enforced. It says what your mouth could not say. It draws lines where you refuse to draw them. The fatigue you feel is not laziness. It is soul depletion. The anxiety that creeps in your chest is not random. It is the cry of your neglected self, desperate for you to stop leaking your essence into other people's wounds. The autoimmune disorders where your body attacks itself, are they not a perfect metaphor for a self that has turned against itself by refusing to protect itself? The migraines that blind you, are they not your psyche? Saying, stop seeing everyone else's pain and look at your own. The digestive pain, is it not your body rejecting what you have swallowed for too long? They are not always just biological. They are sometimes the symptoms of an unguarded temple, the price of a soul that has forgotten its right to sovereignty. Do not dismiss this as mystical exaggeration. I have seen patients who, after finally reclaiming their right to boundaries, healed ailments they carried for decades. The body remembers what the mind forgets. And when the mind finally aligns with self-protection, the body sighs with relief and begins to heal. Because the psyche, when chronically violated, will manifest protection by force if you do not claim it by will. If you will not build walls, your body will build them. If you will not say no, your illness will say it for you. And if you continue to live as though your light exists only to soothe others, eventually, your soul will retreat. You will find yourself numb, disconnected, cynical. You will no longer recognize your own reflection because the mirrors around you were never built to show you only what others needed from you. It is in this crisis that many empaths begin to awaken. They begin to notice the patterns, the friendships that never felt mutual, the relationships built on emotional labor, the sense that people love their presence but not their personhood, that they are valued for what they provide, not for who they are. This awakening is brutal because it requires the death of your favorite illusion that being good will protect you. No. Being good in the eyes of the unconscious means little if it means being empty. Virtue without vitality is just another form of death. Let me say this clearly. Your light does not exist to prevent abandonment. It exists to illuminate truth. And truth is not always pleasing. Truth is not always comfortable. Truth sometimes drives people away. And that is as it should be. The work of Carl Jung, empath, and personal development teaches us that wholeness requires integrating both our light and our shadow, both our capacity to love and our right to refuse, both our gift of feeling and our need for protection. There is a reason the mystics withdrew from the noise of the world. There is a reason the prophets wandered alone in deserts and caves. There is a reason the true healers walk between realms rather than dwell in the comfort of the crowd. Because light must be cultivated in silence before it is shared in service. Because power must be gathered inward before it can be given outward. Because the self must be known before it can be offered. But you have tried to be everything to everyone. You have opened the gates wide and called it love. You have allowed your gift to be diluted, polluted, and sometimes even exploited, because the fear of being alone felt more unbearable than the pain of being drained. The fear of abandonment was greater than the fear of self-erasure. The terror of rejection was stronger than the instinct for self-preservation. I understand. But I must tell you, aloneness is not abandonment. It is consecration. It is the sacred act of returning to yourself, of remembering who you are, beneath all the roles you've played for others. You must enter solitude if you are to retrieve your light. You must be willing to disappoint others in order to reappoint yourself as the center of your own being. You must risk being called selfish in order to finally have a self worth protecting. You must learn to say the most sacred word in the empath's vocabulary. No. No, I will not carry what is not mine. No, I will not merge with someone who does not honor my soul. No, I will not betray myself to feel loved. No, I will not set myself on fire to keep you warm. No, I will not dissolve my boundaries to ease your discomfort. And yes, this will change everything. People will fall away. But what falls away was never love. It was dependency. It was exploitation. It was the dynamics that required your diminishment for their comfort. You may grieve it. Let yourself grieve the relationships that could have been if they had been built on mutuality instead of consumption. Grieve the version of yourself that tried so hard to be everything for everyone. Grieve the innocence that believed love meant endless giving. But do not go back. Do not return to the old patterns just because the new ones feel uncomfortable. Because if you do, the cost will be even greater. The more you know about your own pattern, the more dangerous it becomes to ignore it. Awareness demands responsibility. Consciousness requires choice. Now let us speak of protection. Empaths often recoil at the idea of self-protection. They associate it with coldness, with cruelty, with selfishness. They think that boundaries mean walls, that protection means isolation, that self-care means abandoning others. But this is the conditioning of the wounded child, not the wisdom of the integrated self. Protection is not a wall. It is a filter. It is not about keeping everything out, but about discerning what comes in. It does not mean closing your heart. It means discerning whose hands are clean enough to touch it. It means asking, does this person honor what is sacred? Do they recognize the gift, or do they only see the utility? Your light is holy. Treat it as such, not with arrogance, but with reverence. Not with pride, but with the recognition that what is sacred must be protected if it is to continue blessing the world. There are practices for this: rituals, boundaries, energetic hygiene. But the most important one is internal. You must believe you are worth protecting. You must know in your bones that your well-being matters as much as anyone else's. Because until you believe that nothing will change, you will intellectualize your trauma. You will read books, attend workshops, quote boundaries on social media, nod along in therapy. But you will still leak your essence through the cracks of unconscious agreements. The agreement that says, I'll be whoever you need me to be if you promise not to leave. The agreement that says, if I heal you, maybe someone will finally come heal me. The agreement that says, if I make myself indispensable, maybe I won't feel invisible. The agreement that says, my pain is acceptable if it prevents yours. These are the real prisons, not the people, the patterns, the unconscious contracts signed in the blood of childhood wounds. The psyche repeats what is unhealed. And you, beloved empath, are repeating the scene of your first abandonment over and over again, hoping for a different ending. Trying to prove to someone long gone that you are worthy of staying for. But you are the ending. You are the resolution. You are the healing. You are the one you've been waiting for. You are the one who must say enough. Enough to carrying what was never yours. Enough to performing worthiness. Enough to bleeding so others can live. Enough to believing that your value lies in your utility. This is the moment you reclaim your throne, not as queen of suffering or king of self-sacrifice, but as sovereign of your own psychic kingdom, as the ruler of your own inner realm, as the one who decides what enters and what stays outside the gates. Because light, when it remembers itself, becomes fire. And fire cannot be fed upon. It burns through illusion. It purifies the wound. It illuminates what has been hidden. It transforms everything it touches. So rise, you who have been feeding others for so long. Rise not as prey, but as flame. Not as victim, but as victor. Not as sacrifice, but as sacred power. There is something sacred that happens when an empath ceases to beg for belonging. When the light once dimmed by overgiving begins to burn inward, not outward. When you, the once fractured mirror of everyone else's sorrow, finally look into yourself and see not pain, but presence. Not emptiness, but essence. Not wound, but wisdom. This is not the end of empathy. It is the birth of real love. Because until now, what you called love was often a transaction, a trade, an exchange of your light for their approval. I'll hold your pain if you let me feel needed. I'll carry your darkness if you make me feel valuable. But now you begin to glimpse a love that asks nothing in return. A love that radiates simply because it is not to be recognized, not to be repaid, not to earn anything, but because it is your very nature. That is the essence of divine empathy. Fierce, luminous, and sovereign. Compassionate, but not codependent. Open, but not defenseless. Giving, but not depleting. And in this place, something strange happens. The people who once fed on your softness begin to wither in your presence. Not because you have become cruel, but because your light no longer leaks. It no longer seeps out through unconscious cracks. It burns with intention, with consciousness, with choice. It stuns them. It forces them to face their own hollowness. They can no longer use you to avoid themselves. They can no longer hide in your light. They must find their own or remain in darkness. They may call you selfish. They may say you've changed for the worse. They may accuse you of losing your kindness, your warmth, your love. Let them. These are echoes of an old script. You are rewriting it now, word by word, choice by choice, boundary by boundary. They will try to trigger the old reflexes, guilt, shame, obligation. They will push the buttons that once worked so well. They will try to make you feel bad for feeling good, wrong, for getting whole, cruel, for becoming conscious. Let them try. These are the death throes of a dynamic that no longer serves you. Watch them with compassion, but do not return to them. You must understand, your empathy is no longer available for codependent contracts. Your light is no longer for sale. Your soul is no longer open for business to anyone who claims to need you. And it is here in this reclamation that the archetype of the wounded healer begins to evolve. For the wounded healer, when unconscious, is a martyr, a victim of his own gift, a prisoner of his own compassion. But when awakened, he becomes a channel for transformation, not a sponge that absorbs everything, not a fixer that takes responsibility for everyone, but a vessel, a sacred container through which healing can flow without drowning the healer. You do not carry pain anymore. You witness it. You allow it to move through, not into you. Like a sacred river that flows but never floods the banks. Like a channel that allows water to pass but does not become the water. This is the highest form of empathy. Not absorption, but alchemical presence. Not merging, but mirroring. Not taking on, but holding space. This journey through Carl Jung empath and personal development reveals that true transformation requires a fundamental shift in how we understand our gifts. The journey from unconscious giving to conscious sovereignty is the ultimate path of integration and the marriage of compassion and self-preservation, the union of heart and healthy boundaries. And now we enter the final chamber of this inner sanctum, the mystery beneath the mystery. The question that has haunted you since you first realized you were different. Why were you chosen to feel so deeply? Why does your heart open to the invisible currents of a room and the unspoken grief in a stranger, the sadness behind someone's smile? Why can you feel things that others don't even notice? It is not because you are cursed. It is because you are initiated. Yes. Initiated into mysteries that most people will never touch. Called into a depth that most people will never explore. Chosen for a path that demands everything but offers transformation in return. Empaths are not born in comfort. They are forged in the fire of emotional neglect, of psychic overwhelm, of ancestral wounds passed down, like haunted heirlooms through generations that never learned to heal. But from that fire, something ancient awakens the soul's instinct to unify what has been divided, to heal what has been broken, to bring light where there is only darkness. The true empath is a bridge walker, a mystic, a carrier of myth and meaning, someone who can hold the tension of opposites, the joy and the sorrow, the chaos and the calm, the light and the shadow, and not collapse under the weight of that paradox. But that strength only comes after you stop leaking your power, after you learn to contain what you carry, after you remember that you are not just the feeling, but the feeler, not just the light, but the one who tends the light. You must become less available to the world if you wish to serve it truthfully. You must let go of being the rescuer, the savior, the one who saves everyone else while drowning yourself. You must grieve the identity that was built around being indispensable. The self-concept that said, I am valuable because I am needed. I matter because I fix things. I exist because I serve. This is death. Yes, a death of the false self, the death of the persona you built to survive. the death of the identity that kept you safe but kept you small. But in that death, your real self begins to emerge slowly, wildly, authentically. The self that was there before the wounding. The self that exists beyond the roles. The self that is enough simply by being. And you will find, perhaps for the first time, a strange and terrifying peace. Because peace for someone used to emotional chaos feels wrong at first, feels boring, feels like something must be wrong because nothing is dramatically wrong. You may even miss the drama, miss the crisis, miss being the hero, miss the adrenaline of always being needed, always being called upon, always being the one who saves the day. These were your addictions. The chaos was your drug. The rescuing was your high. The being needed was your validation. Let them fall away. Let yourself withdraw. Let yourself be unavailable for the first time in your life. You were never meant to be everyone's emotional shelter. You were meant to be your own temple, your own sanctuary, your own sacred space. Let the world learn to hold itself for once. Let the takers find their own reservoirs. Let the narcissists implode without your light to stabilize them. Let the broken learn to heal themselves instead of feeding on your healing. And let yourself sit in silence without rescuing anyone, without fixing anything, without being useful or non-needed or indispensable. Only then will you feel it, the pulse of your own soul beneath all the noise. It is subtle at first, a soft echo beneath the cacophony, a quiet voice you haven't heard in years, maybe decades, maybe ever. But if you listen, if you stay still long enough, it grows louder. It tells you where to go, who to trust, what to say yes to, and what to walk away from. It becomes your compass, your guide, your inner knowing. This is your empathic gift, finally returned to you, not as burden but as blessing, not as curse but as compass, not as martyrdom but as inner alignment, not as weight but as wings. And here finally you begin to feel something unfamiliar yet undeniable joy. Not the joy that comes from pleasing others, not the high of being needed, not the satisfaction of fixing someone, not the relief of avoiding conflict, but the quiet-rooted joy of simply being, of being whole, of being home in your own body, of taking up space without apologizing, of existing without justifying, of living without performing. This is your inheritance. But first, you must protect it. You must bless your light with structure. You must give your empathy the dignity of limits. You must surround your soul with the sacred architecture of no. Not now. Not for you. Not anymore. Not at this cost. Because love without structure is chaos. Empathy without discernment is self-abandonment. Compassion without boundaries is a slow death dressed up as virtue. The profound work of Carl Jung, empath and personal development, is ultimately about remembering that you are not here to dissolve into others' pain, but to stand as a beacon of integrated consciousness, whole-boundaried and fully alive. You are here to show others what it looks like to feel deeply and protect yourself fiercely, to love expansively and maintain your sovereignty. So I leave you with this, not as an ending, but as a return, a homecoming. Return to yourself. Return to the light that does not beg to be seen. Return to the stillness beneath the giving. Return to the self you abandoned in the name of love. And remember, you are not here to absorb everyone's suffering. You are here to transmute it by embodying the truth that you are no one's savior. And yet still your light remains, but it is no longer food for others to consume. It is fire that burns with its own purpose. It is flame that cannot be extinguished by another's need. Let it burn. Let it protect. Let it bless. Let it illuminate. Let it transform. Let it purify. And most of all, let it belong to you. For when you stop letting others' darkness define your light, you will realize what has been drained all along was never energy, it was awareness unnamed until now. You have been searching for permission to guard your own soul. You have been waiting for someone to tell you that your boundaries are not betrayal. You have been hoping that one day someone would see the depth of your exhaustion and grant you the right to rest. But no one can grant you what you must claim for yourself. This is the ultimate teaching that the greatest act of love is not endless giving, but conscious sovereignty. That the most profound healing comes not from saving others, but from integrating your own fragmented self. That true empathy is not self-destruction, but self-preservation in service of the whole. Your light was always meant to illuminate, not to be consumed. Your empathy was always meant to connect, not to dissolve. Your soul was always meant to be sacred, not sacrificed. Your life was always meant to be yours, not everyone else's. Now you know. Now you see. Now you choose. Will you continue as you were leaking light into the void of others' unhealed wounds? Or will you finally, courageously, fiercely become the guardian of your own sacred flame? The choice has always been yours. The power has always been within you. The light has always been your own. You simply forgot. You simply gave it away. You simply believed the lie that you were only valuable when empty. Now you remember. Now you reclaim. Now you rise. Protect it. Honor it. Let it burn with the fierce clarity of truth. Let it shine with the brilliance of consciousness. Let it glow with the warmth of self-love. For you are not here to be devoured. You are here to be whole. And in that wholeness, you become not less loving, but more free. Not less compassionate, but more discerning. Not less of a healer, but finally at last healed. This is Carl Jung's final warning. This is your awakening. This is your return to self. This is your initiation complete. The wounded healer becomes the conscious channel. The martyr becomes the mystic. The victim becomes the victor. The consumed becomes the consecrated. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome home to your light. Welcome home to your sovereignty. The journey is complete. The transformation is yours. If these words resonated deep within your soul, I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. What pattern are you finally ready to break? What boundary are you ready to build? What part of your light are you ready to reclaim? Share your story. It may be the permission someone else needs to begin their own healing. This work of awakening is not meant to be done alone. Subscribe to this channel for more transformational insights into depth psychology, the unconscious mind, Jungian wisdom, and the sacred journey of becoming whole. Join a community of empaths who are learning to shine without burning out, to feel without drowning, to love without losing themselves. Your light is not meant to be hidden, but it is also not meant to be stolen. It is time to protect what is sacred. It is time to honor your boundaries as acts of love. It is time to let your fire burn bright, not as fuel for others, but as illumination for your own becoming. Ring the bell to be notified when I release new content on shadow work, archetypal psychology, and the path of the awakened empath. Like this video if it helped you see yourself more clearly. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Thank you for having the courage to see. Thank you for having the strength to feel. And thank you for choosing at last to protect the light you carry. You are not alone in this journey. We are all walking each other home, not by carrying each other, but by learning to walk upright, sovereign, and whole. Until next time, may your light be protected, your boundaries be strong, and your soul be free.